Welcome back. All right, so it is that time of year again. We are going to start talking about draft prospects. We're going to start with Shane Wright because I like to work my way through. The consolidated rankings from Elite Prospects have him at number one, which means that most places have him at number one. The most recent article I found on TSN about it, 6 out of 9 scouts that were asked by Bob McKenzie said that he goes number one. So in all likelihood, he goes number one. There are a couple of outside threats, but it's his draft. It's been Shane Wright's draft the whole way through, right? He's 6'1", 187 pounds or 85 kilos, and he's a center. And so for Montreal, you got to think about it. If you have Shane Wright at the number one center spot and he becomes the player that everybody envisions him to be, you got Nick Suzuki as your number two center, you don't have to worry about center for about a decade. So at least, I mean, there's salary cap and other things, but you don't have to worry about your top two centers for quite a while, and then you can just worry about 3 and 4 and how you're going to fill that out. So this year in Kingston, he got off to a slow start, and there was a lot of discussions about whether or not maybe he's not as good as expected, but by the end of the season, he picked it up 63 games, 32 goals, 62 assists for 94 points. Fewer goals than the previous season, but again, he had really picked up his game by the end of the season, and so the Frontenacs were pretty happy with him. I think the Scouts are pretty happy with him as well. And again, he's number one on everything. There's with these videos as I go through this playlist, and I'm looking forward to hockeyprospect.com releasing their black book. Once the black book's been released, there's tons of notes and tons of information for me to use for these videos. I can absolutely do the videos on the top prospects as it is, but I really like to have that book. And of course, Elite Prospects has theirs as well that gets released. I know the hockeyprospect.com one comes out June 15th to 20th is what they're looking for their date. And Elite Prospects, of course, will have theirs as well. And I like to have both of those and go through and, put together as much as I can for videos like this so we can talk about the upcoming prospects with the idea that we can look back years later and say, hey, so this guy ended up being better than expected, or that guy didn't quite live up to the expectations. And with Wright, the expectations are pretty darn high. So TSN, he's number one. Hockey Prospect, he's number one. He's number one on all the lists right now, right? So his strengths, where do you start? I mean, teamwork, speed, acceleration, shooting accuracy, passing, leadership, agility. Like there really isn't anything I could find on him that's a weakness. Like hitting was listed as being low. Well, he's a number one center, so if he doesn't hit very much, that's okay. But from everything I've seen, he's got very good 200-foot game. He's as good away from the puck as he is on the puck. Not only that, elite hockey sense, sees the ice very, very well. So big, he's to use the buzzwords, the high hockey IQ. He is considered elite at a lot of these things, right? And the amount of hype around him is pretty high. We've seen other recent draft picks with a lot of hype. Lafreniere with the Rangers comes to mind. I do think Lafreniere will reach that top level. Jack Hughes, it took him a little while, but he gets to that top level now. And Shane Wright is seen as having a higher ceiling than Hughes. Pretty sure higher than Lafreniere as well. And of course, Connor Bedard's down the road next year, and Connor Bedard's going to get, I think, even more hype than any of them since Connor McDavid. But it is important to realize this is a center. He's over 6 feet tall. He's good in the face-off circle from what I was reading as well. Now, with kids, they often will struggle when they get to the NHL because face-offs are at a whole other level, but they can catch up later. Again, Suzuki comes to mind there. But everything in his game tells me he's number one. There doesn't seem to be anything that I look at with, and Uri Slavkovsky and Logan Cooley are seen as the two that might threaten the number one spot. But I can't see Montreal, with the draft being in Montreal, I don't want to say taking a risk, because I think Slavkovsky and Cooley are both going to be very good NHL players, but I don't see them not taking Shane Wright. I don't think Montreal wants to look back at this years down the road, have taken somebody else, and see Shane Wright go to New Jersey and become that super megastar player that he's expected to be. Because again, the last time that Montreal had the number one pick, they took Doug Wickenheiser, and they left Denny Savard for the taking after they were done. And I mean, Wickenheiser had a decent length career. probably wish they'd taken Savard instead. So I don't think that mistake takes place again. I think they go with the solid number one that everybody agrees is number one, and in this case, it's Shane Wright. He ticks off a lot of boxes for the Montreal Canadiens. It was a really bad season for them. Having this number one pick could really help them turn things around. But there you go. Honestly, there's not a whole lot of as I get further into this draft, I'll be able to get more into players that are, there are the strengths, there are weaknesses in the game as well. And with Wright, I really can't find anything in terms of weaknesses. Any scout saying, well, I mean, the closest I could get is scout saying he wasn't quite as dominant tonight as we usually see. He had a goal, but so he had a not that great of a night, but he had a goal and he played well away from the puck. Montreal will take that. Most fans will take that, right? How was Shane Wright's night? He had a goal, but he can do better. That's a pretty high bar, and he clears it. He does. He clears it. So, I would be very surprised if Montreal doesn't take him. That's the Montreal jersey. But let me know your thoughts in the comment section below whether or not you think maybe somebody does take somebody else. Does Montreal take someone else? I don't see it. But let me know your thoughts. Hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. And I'm looking forward to getting into this year's draft class as we go through it. Again, very often the draft picks that are later in the draft can lead to very interesting videos. Because again, there's those drawbacks that go with the strengths. And especially once Elite Prospects and Hockey Prospect have released their draft books where they get into all the prospects. Honestly, they're very good reads, and I greatly appreciate both because there was a time where draft videos I didn't have all the information I needed, so learned from that mistake, and here we are. But let me know your thoughts. Hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video, and yes, I will be doing prospect profiles leading up to the draft, and I'll do them as often as I can. I'm leaning towards one a day and seeing how far I can get before I need those other publications as well for all those notes and everything too. But hey, thank you guys so much for all your support. I will talk to you again soon.